Again, very special night. This is our last stream of 2024. I can't believe I'm saying that. We have in store tonight one that is years in the making. Years in the making. No, not yet. We've been doing some live VeeFam sessions. VeeFam Sessions is a podcast that I started in 2022. In the last few weeks, I've pivoted to doing many of those episodes live right here on the VeeFam Network and then putting them out as podcasts. So far, we're 2 for 2. I've had an amazing time putting them out. We've had some amazing guests, and this week is no different. Someone that has been since VeeFam Sessions #1, I've been wanting to get on this podcast. Someone near and dear to my heart, very special to me. Probably someone that's near and dear to your heart too. She is one of the most beloved people in the community. So let's go. We're going to jump right into. I thought it was great. Anyway, here we go. Welcome back to another episode of VeeFam Sessions. My name is Mr. Messer, but you can call me Rob, and I am thrilled to be joined by the one, the only contributing member of To the Moon Cards, a pillar in this community, Miss Chelsea Messer. Welcome to VeeFam Sessions. This is when you come. Yeah, come on.
I didn't know what the rules
We didn't rehearse.
We did not.
Welcome. You're on the VeeFam. This is a historic episode. First of all, it's live. Episode number 69 with Chels. First time ever. Episode 69. The first ever episode where I'm in the same room as someone. First ever episode with someone I'm related to. First guest I've ever seen naked. Amazing. Chels, welcome to VeeFam Sessions. How are you?
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me. It has been a long time goal of mine to be on the VeeFam Sessions, so I am beyond honored to be here. Yeah, you want to put that in the middle?
Meet me in the middle.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. We're closing out a long, exciting week. How are you doing?
I'm good. So excited to have you here. So much to jump into. I'm going to start where I start with everyone. Let's take it back to. I'm going to try not to look at the chat. We should have the chat. Gonna take it back to where I start with everyone. Can you give me the 55-second Cliff Notes on who Chels is prior to getting into this VeeFriends world that we're living in right now?
Wow. Prior to VeeFriends, who was I? I was kind of all over the place, as you probably know. But for those who don't, I dabbled in startups. I dabbled in making my own businesses. I came from a town in Connecticut where both my parents worked a lot, and I kind of had to do my own thing. And then I went off to school thinking I was going to make movies, which that took a turn. I didn't actually end up ever doing anything. I dropped out of school, which a lot of people don't know. Dropped out of school and then found you. And then we kind of went on a journey together of mindset work, and I kind of was all over the place. I dabbled in like weird odd jobs and didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing or where I should be going or who I was. And then we kind of dabbled in some mindset stuff, and then my life took a turn, and then I grew a lot of confidence in myself and who I was, and started dabbling in the entrepreneur side of things and starting businesses and figuring out what I was never told, which is that I'm just good doing things on my own and not under an umbrella of someone. So kind of took life by the reins there and did a few things. A pretty profitable crystal business for a while, which was right before VeeFriends. Actually, that was the last thing I think before like my infatuation with Web3 kind of took off. I did like the online live shopping right before it was kind of like cool and trendy. So I did that for a while. And then the one thing about me is I kind of get bored very easily. So then I found myself in Web3. And then that's where that whole thing kind of took off. And VeeFriends came a little bit not too long after.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot.
Well, there's a lot to unpack just in that little segment. Way over 55 seconds, but that's okay.
Oh, did you say
Let's
55 seconds?
let's go. I'm gonna go back to something you said, which actually is not only a was a theme on last week's episode here with Corso, but just an overall kind of storyline in the Gary V stream of content. Like, what is the ROI on school right now in 2024, going to 2025? Pressure. Parents, the prior generation putting pressure on kids to go to school. What was why did you ultimately leave? And if you could go back, would you change that decision?
Interesting. Ultimately, I left because I don't think I was learning anything I was interested in. I was never taught to kind of dive into like what you like, and then and if that changes, it's okay to switch gears. And I don't think school's really geared for that kind of mindset. And so, it's also fixed and like, here's your outside of a couple of electives, it's like, here's your program for the next 4 years. This is just what you have to do. And things didn't make sense to me. So I kind of blew through all of my electives and I didn't last long in school, but I blew through all the electives that you're supposed to do in 4 years, my first year and a half. And those are the ones that you really kind of have a choice on. So after I did that, all I had left were like psychology, and like I had to do a lab and math courses galore, which I am not at all a math student, or anything to do with math is not my forte. And so I would go to these classes and I would just feel dumb. I would feel confused, and it's not because I couldn't learn things, because I just didn't want to. So I think it got to the point where I was just like, I was frustrated and I was aggravated. I was having anxiety about it. So I was like, okay, I'm just not going to do it. For me, I've always been the type of person where it's like, if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. But like, you can't do that in high school. I mean, I guess you could, but like, I had to stick that out. I had to stick that one out. In college, I kind of had a little bit more choice. So for me, it was like, after I got done with all the stuff I like liked, there was nothing left for me. So that was when I kind of
Mm.
decided it was time.
Um, right now, are you still happy with your decision? Would you change anything?
I definitely would change not going at all. And instead exploring, maybe interning and doing some different type of career options and exploring things more. I don't believe in traditional education as I received it, for not for everyone. For some people, I think it works really well and that structure is great. And like, for me, it didn't feel good. So if I could change anything, I wouldn't have gone to school in the first place, because I had debt from that, which I
Mm.
don't think I needed, and it didn't really serve me well. I think now there's so many options for education and learning what you want, um, that I just didn't know back then. So the only thing I would have changed is just not going at all and exploring more as an adult, probably traveling a little bit more. I feel like a lot of opportunities come when you travel and meet new people. I probably would have done something more along those lines. But I didn't have that support. I didn't have anyone like telling me or cheerleading me on, or like I didn't even know that could be like a
Mm.
possibility. So it's hard to say if I would change things. But yeah, I probably just would have never have gone.
Interesting. Before speaking of mindset, I want to get to that next chapter that you already alluded to. But in my prep for this, I read a note that you worked at a sex shop. Is there any truth to that?
You read a note?
In my prep
Yeah,
leading up to this,
there is truth to that.
talk to us about that.
You want me to elaborate on that?
I mean, what did you do? What did you do there?
Essentially, I kind of managed. I yeah, I didn't think that was coming up. I'm a little caught off guard. Uh, yeah, there was a position open, and I at the time just was like, well, I need to make money. And I worked like the later shift most of the time. Um,
Like the after bar shift?
yeah,
Okay.
on a very busy street where there were a lot of bars. I'm a little caught off guard here, but I have dabbled in a lot, and that was one of the things that I dabbled in. It wasn't like a career goal. It was just one of those like transition periods of my life. It was rough.
You, I mean, you said you were promoted very fast, and that's what.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of competition.
Um,
An easy thing.
moving on. I just wanted to.
If
I
you're
wanted to
looking for a management position,
I wanted to fact check it.
yeah, that's true.
Um,
Can
so
happen.
you mentioned you caught the entrepreneur bug. I usually people have that in them from a young age, or they're inspired by someone like a Gary. So, did you have any signs of that early on in your childhood, or was it some of the voices in your head that you learned or met later on?
Yeah, I don't think I was consciously aware of any of those signs. I think more so for me it was just like nothing ever worked, and entrepreneurship was never like talked about or pushed on me. My mom, like, she's still in the same job from when I was a kid. She's still there. Um, my dad was a funeral director for years, and so it wasn't his funeral home. So it was never like go out and do your own thing or let's have a lemonade stand or nothing like that. The only thing I could think of that I didn't put the pieces together was just like nothing worked, and I didn't do well with authority. Like I couldn't hold a normal job, and like I couldn't, if I gave an idea and my idea was turned down, it bothered me. It really affected me, and I wanted to be part of more inner working things. Nothing was really gonna work for me. Even the jobs I had in like high school, I worked at a bowling alley and I did like all of their birthday parties and stuff. I just wasn't happy because it was like the same thing. The setup and breakdown of a birthday party is the same thing. Like nothing can change. And I didn't have a voice to make it innovative. Like it wasn't my bowling alley and nobody cared. Nobody cared
Mm,
about what anyone had to say outside of just like set up the tablecloths and let's move on. So and that kind of stuff bored me. It really, really bored me. So I think my first um, realization was when I worked for the startup company, Think It, Drink It, which we were together for. And I was involved in like decisions, and I had to wear so many hats and do so many things that I've never done before. I was making nutritional labeling, and they're like, "Hey, Chels, do you want to make nutritional labeling?" And I was like, "No." But then I looked it up and I watched videos and I learned how to be a nutritional
label maker.
label person. And then the next day they'd be like, "Hey, we really need packaging for this. This is what we kind of want it to look like and it's got to be innovative and blah blah blah. Can you go out and find us a distributor who will do this?" Knew nothing about packaging, knew nothing about having those conversations, but I just went out and did it. And then so as like tasks were changing, I liked that challenge and I kind of realized, wait, this feels more right than like the same old thing over and over again with no challenge and no like outcome and no feeling of like success or anything like that. So I think after that job was the first time I was kind of like, wait a second, like I started to put the pieces together. And then when you and I started to get more into the mindset work and we started to dive into like Tony Robbins and stuff, that's kind of
Mm,
when things really start to make sense because I had no one in my life talking to me about it. So I knew I was different and like things weren't right, but I didn't know what it was or what it meant, if that makes sense.
totally. So that you got to dabble a lot. You got to explore. There was no fences holding you in.
Yeah.
There's no chains holding you down. I'm gonna go here just because I know the context, but talk to us about the Tony Robbins personal development era because at the time, excuse me, the time I think we're hearing this when you're dabbling into this world of entrepreneurship. A lot of the messaging is you need to grow yourself before you can grow a business, right? Your
Yeah.
business can only be as big as you are,
Mhm.
right? You need to believe in yourself. You need to be confident. You need to um just believe in what you're doing because we and many of the listeners know, like, you're going to get a lot of pushback, you're going to get a lot of no and I can't, and people, and
Mhm.
toxicity, and just not the motivation, inspirational stuff that you get from a Gary and a community that comes with that. But so talk to me about the precipice for getting into that really quick, because I know there's probably some good nuggets there.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of catalyst that whole thing. And you were personally developing before I was. and you were going, and it was creating like a gap because I wasn't keeping up. And I think that was really, we talked about this when you and I used to have a podcast together, how,
That's right. We
yeah,
did.
couples, like, you're either growing together or someone's growing without you.
In
And
business and in health,
and
check it out.
and it was creating a gap.
Forgot.
Yeah, because you were like making moves and I wasn't. And I think that's really important, uh, to realize that early, because then before you know it, someone's going to be far gone and much happier and confident than the other person because they didn't personally develop. So you started that catalyst for us. And I was never, same thing, wasn't talked about, didn't, had no idea like that was a thing and that we should have been doing it since we were born. But you were reading books, you were watching videos, you were listening to podcasts. And then we started a business, and through that business there's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people were talking Tony Robbins, and we kind of dived into a little bit more just for like business growth. And we said, I think it was you one day, you're just like, should we do the Tony Robbins 3-day event, Unleash the Power Within? And so we kind of started researching it, and I saw people walking on hot coals, and I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be like. But then you hear the testimonials of like how much they grew through it. And I was like, at this point, like, I'll do anything to like close this gap between us. So like if that was me personally developing, going to this 3-day thing, like I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that I'm personally developing at the speed that you are. And so we went to this event and we made an agreement that we wouldn't sit together. And this
Yeah,
event, we're talking
that's right.
thousands and thousands of people, like a huge amount of people. And I at the time was having like panic attacks in the middle of the night and really, really bad anxiety. And so I said to you, I was like, well, we made this agreement not to sit together so we can kind of post both personally develop in our own way without influencing each other,
Mm.
because some of the stuff is like really personal and like
It's deep work.
very deep work. Yeah, yeah. And we just didn't want it to be influenced. We didn't want to hold each other back. So that first day when we walked in, I had a full blown panic attack. Like I was on the floor. I did not want to go in. I was really struggling. And do you remember?
Forgot until now. Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember
No.
it very vividly, this one moment where like going up the elevator and we're surrounded by thousands of people. And all I could feel in my head was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to like face everything I probably don't want to face. I'm gonna have to do it in 3 days around strangers. And I like was going up this elevator and I just felt like my legs start to buckle underneath me. And then we got to the top of the escalator. We got to the top of the escalator and then I just like collapsed on the floor and I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, oh, it was awful. And we're just like, you crouched down with me and we're like, we can do this. And so then we went in separately. Even after that, we went in separately. And then we spent 3 days just kind of working on ourselves and like getting new perspectives, because I think you can hear something a million times, but sometimes it takes one person a different way or a different story or something else to unlock it, to finally like release potential and stuff like that. So, and then from there we just heard speakers we liked that we took back with us, and there were books that were quoted throughout the whole 3 days that really resonated with us, and we took that back and I started reading books. And yeah, we walked on
Mm.
coals. We were firewalkers. And
Which is an amazing metaphor because, like, you look at it and you're like, why would I want to walk on fire? Can't walk on fire.
yeah,
But you do. And
yeah,
it just kind of is a
yeah,
huge reminder of like what the human is capable of.
yeah. The biggest thing I know, I from that I take with me today is the fear acronym. And I always go back to it, which is false evidence appearing real. And I always go back to it. Anytime I'm feeling some type of fear, I'm like, okay, let's dig this deeper and let's see like what's really the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? And you keep going and keep going. And so that I hold with me now to this day. And I use it for everything in my daily life. I'm like, okay, why do I have fear around this? And because of that, I tend not to get a ton of fear anymore. Like I don't have a problem public speaking. And I used to like I dropped out of school because of my one of the big reasons was my speaking intensive classes that I had to do, which is ridiculous. And so yeah, that was the one of the biggest things I took away from that was that acronym of fear. Just not, it's not a real thing. Yeah.
And I mean, before we wrap up this little segment, what was your biggest takeaway? Like, what was your biggest revelation? because it was huge at the time, and we wouldn't be where we are today without it.
Totally. I think it was just that fear acronym. I think that was the biggest thing that I took away for me. Do you have something in mind?
You had a huge fear in particular.
Oh, yes. Being a mom.
Yeah.
Forgot all about that.
You were scared to have any children.
I was very scared to have kids. Rob and I got married in 2014 and we didn't have Finn until 2018. I was very scared to have kids. And then after Tony Robbins, you're right, after Tony Robbins, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not afraid to be a mom anymore." You're right. I forgot all about that. Wow, that was my biggest
Yeah.
takeaway.
I mean, I don't remember you on the ground. I remember that being what you took away from it. And
Totally.
like it's like anything else. Like you think you're going to VCon for this,
Right.
and this, but you actually leave
Yeah.
with a whole different backpack of takeaways.
Yeah.
And learnings and lessons and revelations and relationships. And same thing with this event. But yeah, no, to anyone listening, anytime you take a big step to go out of your comfort zone, and VCon's very safe, right? VCon, we know what VCon's all about, but any kind of situation, whether it's like you want to do like an open mic night or like going to a Tony Robbins event or any kind of like a networking meetup, like you're gonna have so many reasons you're gonna make up in your head not to do it. But like if you could just push and like
Yeah.
walk across those coals, like you never know what's on the other side. Gary V. When was the first time you remember hearing the name Gary V?
Out of your mouth. Probably, gosh, I don't even know what year it was. But it was from you. You were deep in his content. You sent me a lot of Gary Vee content. Forget which book you've had of his.
No one's ever asked me.
Do you know?
You know how I got hooked up with Gary V? The first person that put me on to Gary V?
Who?
You'll never guess.
Steph?
No. I was listening to Dave Ramsey. It
Okay.
was the Dave Ramsey days when we were trying to do the snowball.
Yeah.
And one of the questions on the podcast was like, Dave, love your stuff. Can you recommend some other podcasts or books that I could listen to? And he threw out the name Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was like really into podcasts at the time. So
You were,
I typed in Gary V or Gary V, Gary Vaynerchuk, and like listen to a podcast. And like
Yeah.
immediately he was talking, like I liked his energy. And immediately he rattled off like a Dave Matthews set list metaphor. Like in the first episode I listened, and we're big Dave fan. Like I'm a huge Dave fan, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like this is first of all the metaphor made sense, and Gary speaks in amazing metaphors, and I was hooked ever since. Anyway, sorry,
No,
I
it's
just
true. And I remember you listening to all of his podcasts, and you would send me episodes and like clips from them, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
just listen to this,
overdoing it.
over and over and over. And I didn't
You were turned off.
I didn't listen. No, I wasn't turned off. I just like I was in a different place still from you. You still were further away. And in a sense, you kind of always are just a little step ahead. I feel like you always bring me up to a better level. So you always just do it a little bit harder than me. And I have to like, you make me better. But yeah, you were listening to the podcast. And I remember you sending me like clips. And then you would send me episodes and you'd be like, oh, or you would come home. You used to listen to them like on your way to school, on your way back from school. And you'd be like, I heard this great episode today. Like, here it is. Listen. And I maybe listened to a couple of the clips that he sent me, kind of like how the TikToks reels I send you and stuff. It's like you get one every now and then, just when like the moment hits. And so nothing ever like really stuck with me too much. I mean, and even then, maybe once in a while. And then it started to become a thing where like you would take his advice and something would work. And then you would do it again and something would work. And then it would be like, it became a saying in our household where it was like, if Gary Vee says to do it, just do it. Remember? And then like,
Well, it started with the cards and a little selling. Like I was always selling, but like
yeah. And then 2020
for the cards, like it became like wow, like
Yeah.
because he's literally saying these players
Yeah.
for these cards.
And you loved like the garage sailing side of everything. And so we would just say like, it came to the point where it was just like, listen, if Gary Vee's saying to do it, just do it. And then, but I still wasn't like fully in. And then
And then, well, in comes VeeFriends
in comes VeeFriends.
at 21.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I started talking about it a lot.
You started talking about crypto more too. You started talking about Ethereum a lot and VeeFriends, and
now we're in May of 2021. You didn't get it.
No, I wasn't there, but I said to you, I was like, listen.
What do you remember thinking?
I remember thinking like I didn't have time for something else. I didn't want to learn something new that I just wasn't there for. And then, but I said, but if Gary's saying it, like, do whatever you want to do. And like, I supported that. And same thing, then you would like send me stuff. Hey, Gary's really talking about NFTs. Like, here, you should learn about this. Like, here's Ethereum. You should learn about this. Crypto market this. You should learn about this. And I just wasn't there. Wasn't there.
And at the time, like, we were just nuts. We didn't have the disposable income.
Right. Financially, it wasn't like we were going to go and mint NFTs.
Like, ETH was more than it is now. It's $4,000.
Yep.
And it was like, I got it.
You would talk about gas all the time, and I'm like,
yeah, gas was insane.
I was like, what?
So you were introduced to the notion of VeeFriends and NFTs and Web3, which brings us to Christmas of 2021 going into 2022, where I started getting for those of you that weren't around during that time, ETH very expensive. ETH was much higher. And to do anything, to trade, like, it costs a lot of gas. The gas was insane. Like, it's gotten much better now. But Solana, if you didn't have any money, that's where you went. You went to Solana.
And I didn't have any
money.
That
was the dirt, Solana. And like, I got into Solana. And then, so we're at Christmas, you're having a few pops, some drinks, maybe a little looser, and you pick up the story from there.
So then you were like scrolling through Magic Eden, which is a huge marketplace on Solana. And we were talking about.
By the way, I just want to reiterate this. ETH is like, people that listening probably saw the Titanic. ETH is like where Jack gets invited to dinner and like they're having the cigars and the nice stuff. And Solana's third class. Like, it's a great time.
Jack Solana.
It's a great time, but it gets looked down on.
Okay. Yeah, it's a party in third class.
I was hanging out in third class.
Yeah. Okay. We were. And
having fun is so much fun.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that. But then I started to feel left out because you were really into this stuff and you were talking about these NFT projects. And once again, you were like up high and I was like, okay, well now I got to get to that level again. So we were talking about like, okay, if I'm going to get involved, you're like, Solana's the place to do it because it's cheap and like you can get in, you can buy a soul. It's fine. Like there's no gas. We can have wallets. Let me help you set up a wallet. And I'm like, what? It was very confusing to me. And then we listened to, do you remember who it was? It was a space. And they were talking about either it was the play to move was they were going back and forth between Gutsy Geckos and the meerkats, meerkat millionaires.
Meerkat, yeah.
And so I listened to this whole thing.
I thought they were cute.
I listened to this whole thing. Remember, and this guy like stated his case of why he thinks like you should go with one or the other. And then like he was talking about people's personalities. That's what Solana is, by the way. It's all like, well, back then it wasn't like super smart moves. It was kind of like who's cooler or whatever. I didn't really learn much from that episode, not gonna lie, except I was still kind of like not sure what to do. So we sit down on the couch. I was like, fine, like let's make me a wallet. And then we made myself a Solana wallet. And then we were looking at Magic Eden and I pulled up those two, the Gutsy Geckos and the millionaires. Gutsy Geckos? Is that what they're called? No, they're called something. The Galactic Geckos. Which by the way, they're killing it. They're killing it right now. I made the wrong choice. I went with the meerkat millionaires because they were cute. And there was one on the floor because that was all we could afford with glasses. And I said to Rob, I was like, all right, this guy's cute. I can vibe with him. I'm going to go with that guy. And I think they were both 3 soul at the time each. They were both 3 soul.
Soul was probably, at the time it was kicking, it was probably like 80.
It was like 86, I think. Yeah, 89
$90, which is crazy high for soul then.
Yeah. And so they were 3 soul, both of them were 3 soul. So we're like, let's decide. And I was like, well, the meerkats are cuter than the geckos. And went with the meerkat. I didn't know anything about like projects or like plans for the future or any of that. I'm pretty sure the meerkats have shit the bed. I sold it not too long after. And the geckos are doing great. But yeah, that was my introduction. And so then after that, it spiraled. It spiraled. And then we were talking about how like soul's gonna skyrocket. So he's like, well, let's buy a couple Solanas and hold them in your wallet. And then he's like, well, since you're in an NFT project now, you should really get Discord. And I'm like, what? And he's like, so I got Discord. And then he's like, well, since you're on Discord, you should join the VeeFriends Discord. I opened that thing up and I deleted it so quickly. I joined the VeeFriends Discord and then I left because it was during a time where it was like, you could not get a message in. Like it was constantly moving the homepage of Discord. And I was like, I can't do this. This is way too stressful. So I was in and out of VeeFriends Discord in like a heartbeat, but I held my meerkat for a hot minute and then I sold it. And then things went kind of crazy for me.
So, yeah, and I'm just gonna take it back just because I know the context. I'm gonna create these parallels.
Yes.
So, started a business, doTERRA, where essential oils, natural health. We still is a big part of our life. We haven't even talked about that. We never talk about that. But once you caught that, you quit your job like 2 days later to go in full time. That was 2015. We're still doing that as part of our life. You jumped in. You started to get into crystals to buy them because you thought they were fun.
Yeah.
And you jumped in, started a business, went all in. You get a taste of NFTs and Web3. You end up jumping in. And, just for time's sake, like how many moderating jobs or how many jobs do you have in Web3?
Total?
Yeah.
Probably between 12 and 15.
And like, just we can like, because we can get into the real nooks and crannies here, but if to overall, you're a community gal, right? You love being with people. What did you like about it? Like why that's a lot of jobs. Like that's a lot of time.
Yeah. I lived in Discord.
What did you love about it?
I loved being able to talk to people all day long at all hours from all walks of life and not having like an actual physical contact with people makes for really interesting connections, like for the better. And I feel like in person, like at a job, you're instantly judging someone by looks or by their voice or by their body language or they're just the way that they're looking at you, right? Any of the above things affect like you going and having a conversation with someone, not on Discord. I was probably talking to people from ages I don't even know to I don't even know. Like you do not know these people, and I feel like people can be themselves, so conversations were a little bit more like genuine. And then you find out it's like someone you would have probably never have talked to, but now you have like a real connection with. And I was able to just kind of like hang out and befriend. Like I used to call myself like everyone's best friend. Like I literally, that was my goal, is if someone came into my Discord group, my only goal was to become their best friend. And
which you did.
I did. And it was a lot of work, but it was easy. I think it's easy to talk to people behind a screen. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed putting on community events, and then it was cool like when you actually do meet people in person, you realize they are as cool as they are online. And it was a whole new way of engaging with people that I haven't done before, and I loved that because it was thousands and thousands of people from all over.
And dealing with, and to your credit, dealing with like the crypto bros of the world, it's not the easiest thing.
Yes, it was a time where it was, I mean, it still is very male dominant. And a lot of times I had to convince people, like, especially when I was community managing, they'd be like, wait, Chels is a girl. Like, you're not actually a girl. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm here, bro. And you have to work a little harder for that respect. But I think that's changed a little bit. But in Solana specifically, it was very much like, you go to toe sometimes, and I feel like I have a strong enough personality where it just like worked. And yeah, I could bro out with the bros too. So But then you also learn a lot. You learn a lot from those guys, and yeah, it was a fun time.
So, we're working, dealing and wheeling in Solana, a job elsewhere,
Yeah.
uh, elsewhere in Web3. We're always, or at least I always had a flag in VeeFriends. From what I can remember, your first, and correct me if I'm wrong, your first sign that you showed any interest in anything VeeFriends was around when book games was going crazy. I'm thinking March of 22 ish, when Gary and the team first showed the 50 new characters that were coming out for series 2, and you had to get all these different variations of book games to burn.
Yep.
Now we have Burn Island, but before this was like the first burning for these characters and VCon 1 tickets for a new character. And you liked which character?
Can you see him?
Oh, he's up there. That's right.
He's still up here. Oh, he's behind your
That's
VeeFam. Um, the whimsical wolf.
a whimsical wolf.
Yeah,
You really enjoyed.
I did. I fell in love with him once that list came out. I was like, that's gonna be my character. He is so cute. He's adorable. I fell in love. Yeah.
So that was, and I think that was it.
That was it.
That was it. You didn't really.
You were big on like the Manikawa. You're like, this is gonna be the character. And I was like, no, it's the wolf.
The devil was like in a league of its own, because at the time everyone thought like the devil was going to be the arch villain.
Yeah.
And people were really, really big on the clown. I think there was some bias there because Jeremy was the leader of the community, always hosting spaces, and he was big on clowns. And then the Minakawa was heavy too.
Yeah.
But I liked the Minakawa at the time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you look back now, there's not too many Maxis
Now, yeah.
or clowns for that matter.
Yeah, you're big on it.
But anyway, so we kind of just going, like, I'm doing my podcast and I think you're just humoring me, but you're like, you never really got into Gary. You never really got into, like, you wouldn't listen to a VeeFriend space. When was the first time you think you took that? If you thinking the wolf is cute is like a half a step, when is the first time you took one or two big steps into like, see what's happening here? I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm hearing. Like, when was your first time?
When you got back from VCon.
VCon 2. So 2023.
Yes. You got.
What's happening there from your perspective?
Yeah. You got back from VCon 2 and you came home with a bunch of cards. That you had collected off. This is what you told me. You collected off the floor at a card night.
Yeah.
And you said cards were flying, and it was like the craziest thing. And you came back and like, so you just like scooped some off the floor like that. Was it Mo? Who was ripping? Someone was ripping cards. And they just didn't care. They didn't give a shit about it. They only wanted like the foils and stuff. They didn't care about anything else.
Everybody was ripping.
Everyone was ripping.
Shiv IR.
Yes.
Would love to talk to Shiv on this show at some point, but Shiv bought like 40 or 50 boxes.
Right.
And then he bought 40 or 50 more and just like passed them around. And I think he was just getting the foils. And
yeah.
everyone
And then
was just
tossing everything else. So you came home with like this stack of cards and like a stack of the stickers. And
all I wanted was a peacock for Finn. That's really all
I know. But you came home with a ton of like cores, just like series 2 cores cards. And you came home and like, you're pulling out your.
And this is before people were like, you had a very, very small percentage.
You had Tom and Josh doing cards, and like
very
no
small
one really
percentage
was
people gave a shit
in it. Exactly. And so you came home with all like a ton of cards. And I was going through these cards and like I was seeing Finn react to these cards, and I was like, let's get him one of those binders and let's create a thing for Finn of all of the characters that you got, and we'll go through it. And so then that day, literally that day, or maybe the next day, I ordered a binder off Amazon. I printed out the whole list of names. I was like, Rob, where can I find the list of names? Like, where are all the characters? Printed out all the lists, and I cut them all up, and I put one in each slot so that when we could fill it on alphabetical, because I don't scoring all that stuff, like none of that mattered. I was just like, I'm going to do this alphabetically. And then he'll have his own little like collection of these cards. And that's when I like got really excited about it. Cause I was like, it's something I can do with Finn and we're gonna collect all of them, not knowing like Black Cat, right? Not knowing Rare Robot, not
Mhm.
knowing Gift Goat, right? I'm like, oh, we're gonna collect the whole set for Finn. It's gonna be great. Let's fill this binder. Here's all the names, print them out. And like with that first set of cards, we had a ton. It was probably like
Mhm.
100 or so character slots were filled. It was a lot. We had a lot. So I was really excited about it. And then we put like the stickers that you brought home with the characters. We put the stickers on the binder for Finn with the VeeFriends sticker on it. And that was the first time I was like, wait, this is something that like I like. And then I was like, I want more cards because I want to finish my kid's binder.
And that was the perfect time because that VCon kicked off what we know now as Cardboard Summer. So we started tuning into at the time it was called Teachers Collectors Corner. June of 2023, you got in your first box battle. It wasn't even a break, it was a box battle.
I have my first like messages with Tom.
And you remember what you hit in your first box battle?
I do remember I got an epic puffin was my first like I reached out to Tom on Discord and I was like, "Hey, are you getting any more boxes?" At the time boxes were like people were buying them for 100, selling for maybe like 150. I don't know, whatever. It wasn't expensive, right?
Stupid.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
That VCon, I think they were selling for
I think it was like
110 or
100. Yeah.
140, one of those
It
two.
was cheap, yeah. And so I reached out to Tom. I was like, "Hey, are you getting any more boxes?" Because I caught wind that he was ripping them, and then I was like, and he was like, "Yeah, I just ordered like 50 more, so I really hope." Because he was like really nervous. He was like, because people still weren't like scooping stuff up, but this is the time where things were starting to take off. So he was like, "I'm really nervous. I just bought like 50 more." And I was like, "Well, don't worry. Like, they're going to go. And I went in on the next one." He's like, "Well, I'm going live soon." So, and I don't think he had like a planned schedule. I think it was kind of like, not as weekly. And so he's like, "I'm going live soon. Like, just look out for announcements." So I turned his notifications on.
Mm.
To this day, they're still on. I was like, notifications on. I want to know the second he's gone because I want to get in on this. So then he made the tweet or whatever it was, and he's like, "I'm going live. We're gonna do box fest." And I was like, I messaged him right away. I was like, I want in. And then so you Venmoed or whatever at the time, like you Venmo him the money. So we did a box battle, half a box. It was the first. This is a fun fact. It was not only a box battle, not only my first time buying into something, it was the first VeeFriends box battle ever
Wow.
that anyone ever did. Ever. He had them that night. It was the first night of box battles ever done.
This is June 2023.
Yeah.
I think June 18th. I have
First one.
a series of tweets somewhere.
And I bought in like the second he made the tweet because I had the notifications on. The second he made the tweet, I messaged him. I'm like, I want on the box battle. So I was the first battle ever. I don't remember who it was against. Sorry. And I won it. And it was an epic puffin that I got to take home. That was my first. And then of course after that, after you pull like a 1 out of 25, and everyone went nuts. I was hooked. I was addicted. And then I said to her, I was like, we need to buy boxes. We need to buy boxes right now. And then that's when I found a guy who had 11 boxes that he was selling. We got it for a ridiculous price.
And also during that time, it's so amazing how you just inject yourself into these
This
things.
is what happens. Yeah. I like find something new and then I'm like doing it all.
Andrew Thomas employed you to organize this whole collection with thousands of cards. I think that's where you learned a lot about the characters, the numbers, and the tiers, and like once you have that data set, that large of a data set, you're like, all right, these are a lot rare. These are a lot rarer than this. Like, okay, I see why this is tier 1. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where I learned a lot.
It was like 7,000 cards he sent me. And he was like, I want them all sleeved and I want them in a spreadsheet. And so I did that. I went to work, sleeved all of them, and I put them in a spreadsheet. I organized them alphabetically. And then I
shout out AT.
Yeah, sent the spreadsheet back to him with everything he had and sent back his cards. Yeah, I forgot all about that. That's amazing.
June, that's VCon's at the end of May. We have June. So we have box battles. This is box battles where, you pay 75 or 80 or 100, 150, whatever it was. But if you didn't win, you lost. Like, you didn't get any cards.
Right.
Like, this is play for keeps days, OG days. And then we get into for me, like, that was fun. For me, the turning point was like when they started to do the series 1 box breaks, like the Addison, like I talk about the Addison stream all the time. Like that,
Best
those
thing
are
ever.
like the feelings in my body of laughing so hard that, like, I'm like, okay, I get this. That's where I remember.
Shout out Addison.
That's where I remember talking to Tom, because like we had so much fun on the stream, and then we would talk about it in Spaces the next day, and then like the card crew really started to take form, right?
Yep. It did.
So this is wild thinking about it in this timeline, because VCon's May, where you don't know shit.
Nothing.
You start to get in, and then July rolls around, and it's the first ever invite only tournament, playtest tournament, and you get invited. Like, what the?
I know.
How did you get invited?
I don't know. And I even reached out and I'm like, May, Corso, like, I don't, how? And they're like, oh, you filled out a form. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And they're like, no, you did. And I was like,
How did you get invited to that?
I don't think I did.
I love
I
you,
got
but
invited. I know. And there was 52 of us, 52 people got invited. And
well, I know why. Because you injected yourself.
I injected myself hard. Yes.
Going through all of the
That's what I did.
IRL things that we talked about earlier, and I didn't even process this until now. You just throw yourself full throttle.
Yeah.
Until you get bored.
Exactly. Yeah.
So talk to that. That was a monumental event. So this is at the National, July 2023.
Yes.
Which
is alone to even think that I was going to be at a card show. Wild. Because you were doing cards and I was ignoring it. It wasn't a thing, like sports cards and stuff like that. I thought it was weird. We even had the conversation like, it's cardboard. Like, what are you doing here? So the thought of like me even going to a card show is bonkers.
Totally.
Bonkers, let alone playing in Gary Vee's first playtest tournament with 52 exclusive invites.
So for context, for those that are kind of newer, the game did not exist prior to this. So they kicked off play by inviting these 52 people to Chicago or Atlantic City? Chicago. And they gave them the rules. They invited them to a private stream a couple weeks before, 2 or 3 weeks before the actual event. And like, okay, this is what's happening. We're making this game.
We got like the rules.
Here are the rules, like the OG rules. You're going to play in a tournament in a few weeks. Start putting together your decks. And people did.
We had the creator of
we were away for a week.
To us.
We were away for a week, so you didn't even have access to cards.
That's right.
No one knew what was happening. So like while the Rauls of the world were like creating spreadsheets and like figuring out how to conquer the world, we're just like, oh, you're going to a card show. So talk to me about when you were there, because that must have been a really neat experience.
It was, and it was my first time at a VeeFriends IRL event.
That's true, because you didn't go to VCon 1 or 2.
And I remember I didn't come from VeeFriends like all these people did. I came from you and I fell into the cards.
Yeah.
Right? Don't own an NFT, or I might have owned a series 2 at this point. I don't remember. But like I'm still not like heavily involved in anything outside of the card world, right? So it was my first event. I was really, really nervous, but I told you, I was like, if I'm going, I'm going to make the most of it. And I really did. I injected myself into the community. I remember it was the first time meeting Jay, but like I didn't know it was Jay. And I like stood next to him. This is how far removed I was from like VeeFriends and like all of their collabs. He was wearing the alpaca Reeboks that were not released yet, because it's Jay.
Really?
They were not. This is a fun fact that a lot of people don't know.
I didn't know that.
So he was wearing these alpaca Reebok shoes, and I looked down at them and I'm like, how'd you get those? And by the way, Jay and I like never had a conversation before, and I had no idea who he was. And that was the first time I met him. I was like, how did you, like, what's that? And it was wild. It was the first time I like felt what community was in VeeFriends, because prior to this, I did one IRL event with Solana in New York. Different vibe, completely. It was fun, different vibe.
Yeah, yeah, VeeFriends.
This was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna hug you because you're a V friend. It was very welcoming, very warm. It didn't take me long to feel comfortable in a setting where I knew nobody. I brought like a bunch of like the VeeFam bracelets I made because I told you I was like, I'm not going to go and like sit in the corner. So I was like, I need something to be able to like start a conversation because I have a hard time with that. I'm kind of socially awkward in person, which is why I do so well on the internet. But I was like, I need something to like be able to start the conversation so I'm not so quiet. And I was like, I know, I'll make these bracelets
Yeah,
that I can say, hi, like I'm Chels, like here's a VFam bracelet and have the conversation. So I did that and it just like that was great. And, it was like my first time meeting Gary. I'm not like a Gary, sign this, sign this, sign this. Hi, da da da. I'm very like standoffish and I kind of like don't do that whole thing. So he like singled me out at the tournament and he was like, you're someone we have to like worry about in this game, aren't we? And I was like, yep. He's like, I'm gonna keep my eye on you. And so that was like our first like interaction. I met all of the card people that are still in the fam today. I met David, Bestie. I met Rips. I met May. I met Andy.
and Texas boys took you under their wing.
The Texas boys. They did take me under their wing,
'Cause you were alone in a big city.
and they got me. I think they secured me pins before, like to make sure I didn't miss out. I think it was the pin or it was something. The wizard packs. It was the wizard pack. And Sam was like, "Don't worry, I got you. Like, I'll make sure that we've got wizard packs for you." And yeah, I just kind of like followed them around a little bit, and then they walked me across the street to like the place where the tournament was, and I just kind of like stuck with them for a bit. So that was really nice. Yeah, I had like, yeah, that I forgot about that. Yeah, they helped me out there, and Joe Animal was there. People were ripping stuff like all over the place. Josh Courage was there. I mean, it was just like a great introduction to the card family that still like holds up today. So yeah, it was a wild experience.
And you won. You smashed.
I did. I won my first match. Yeah, it was Luke, Lucas,
Smashed Luke J.
Luke. He
That's documented heavily on VeeFriends.
it is documented pretty well. And yeah, Luke, I still feel for you. He paid to borrow a deck and I sat on him.
Luke, if you ever want to come on the show and talk about it, we're here.
He's still going to therapy for it.
So cool. Let's Cardboard Summer. Like there'll be books written about Cardboard Summer
Yeah.
at some point. To the Moon on an alternate timeline. Teacher's Collector's Corner eventually becomes forces with To the Moon. To the Moon becomes a thing. We have the Card Wars, the Courage Show versus To the Moon. That whole thing. At the time, you weren't part of To the Moon. Now you are part of To the Moon.
Mhm.
Tell the story of how that changed. How did you join forces with To the Moon?
Yeah, so I started to weasel my way in just by like showing up to the streams a lot. And from that tournament, I actually got the play test prototype Rainbow Planet card. And I held on to that for a while because it meant a lot to me. And then I had an opportunity to make a deal. And this kind of really kickstarted my relationship with Teacher and Jay. Teacher at the time, guys. It was Teacher. It wasn't Tom. It was
It's just Tom.
straight
Just
up
Tom.
Teacher.
Yeah.
And so I made a deal with them, which kind of put me on another level. Like we were on better talking terms after this deal. And after we can go into that deal if you want later, but we made this deal. And after this deal, we started talking more and they were doing a lot of content and stuff, but I just felt like it wasn't enough. And I wanted to be part of it. So I sent a DM to Jay and Tom about like bracelets for like their show. You know, I was like, wouldn't it be great if you guys had To the Moon stuff? And just kind of like joking around with them. And then I just started talking to them like we were working together already. I would wake up and I think I did a video on this, but I'd wake up and I'd DM them. We were in like group chat. I don't think I don't know if they know how they got here. But like I would DM and I'd be like, "Hey, good morning, business partners. Like, what are we talking about today?" And at first they would be like, "Okay, like ha ha ha." But then all of a sudden they started sharing like business stuff. Jay would be like, "Oh, well, we just ordered like 40 boxes and this Friday we're gonna rip this." And then Tom would be like, "Dude, like she's not actually working with us. Like, stop telling her things." And then this would kind of go on for like a month and a half, 2 months of like, I just every day pretended like I worked with them. And then eventually
There's a lesson there, folks.
there was a lesson there. And I was just like, hey, and then like at some point, someone would be like, hey, like, I think Jay would be like, can I have your advice on this? Or like, what do you think if we do this? And he sent me something about like bingo or whatever. And I would send him like voice text back and I'd give him my opinion. And I'd be like, well, you know, it would be great if you guys changed up this part of it or whatever. And it was literally like it was like a thing, but it wasn't actually a thing yet. And then one day, Jay was like, "Hey, Chelsea, do you have time to talk at whatever time it was?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got babies, but sure, I can make it work." And we had like a great hour and a half long conversation. And then the next day, they sent me like, "This is what we want you to do for us. Do you accept? Let's try it out for 3 months." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it out." So yeah, that was the end of 23.
Yeah, that's November 23. And not only did they give you a position, but one of your first orders of business was to rip a Series 1 box.
Yes.
Which was a big deal
It was a huge deal.
in our little, very, very small world that is VeeFriends cards.
Yeah.
And you start doing content, and we have the whole "you fucked up, they fucked up"
Yeah.
series of events. We have the burn, suffocate, hate card into the black cat pull. So I'll throw the ball to you, and you can run wherever you can take it wherever you want. But it was a very fun, interesting turn of events that set the To the Moon rocket off and running.
Yeah.
And the Chels brand.
I don't know. It's definitely not a brand.
Well,
but okay.
Yeah, for your first stream, I think it worked out.
It worked out very well because I made an extremely aggressive video to promote this first stream.
The card is somewhere.
The card's right here.
Oh, the card's right here. Yeah, here it is. So talk to us about for the people that don't know.
Yeah, I'll go through it.
You fucked up.
Yeah. So on one of the
Terrible.
streams,
Where are we here?
so on one of the Fanatics VeeFriends streams, Rips and Molly were doing a show, and Gary comes in behind them to like just say hi and chat a little bit. And then Tom writes in the chat, "We're doing a Series 1 break." And I think he might have done it 1 or 2 times till Gary saw it. And Gary's like, "Series 1 break. Someone's doing Series 1 break. Adam, someone's doing Series 1 break. Like, what's that about?" And then so Adam and Connor knew that I joined the team and that I was going to do a break. And so Adam basically said, and then Gary was like, "Didn't something, aren't they?" And then Adam's like, "Yeah, Chels." And then Connor's like, "Yeah, Chels is, they're joining forces and like they're bringing her on." And Gary's like, "Oh, so like they're rebranding." They're like, "Well, no, they're just kind of like merging and bringing her on." And he goes, "Oh," and he basically ends up saying, "I think they fucked up. I wish they would have came to me to talk to me about stuff. I think they fucked up." And that kind of blew up a little bit. So to put some context to that, if Gary's not saying those kinds of things about you, I don't think like you're close enough to him. Like he does that to help push content. He does that to help give you a platform. Like he knows that could have been used for content, which is exactly what I did with it. I took it and ran. I'm like, this is amazing. Like this means that we're on to something good. So to promote the Series 1 box, I decided to clip that. And then I clipped part that deal I made with Tom for a Series 1 hollow Dapper Doxy PSA 10. And for that playtest card, I traded him that plus the Doxy plus a spot in a break because I had not had like an S1 spot break yet.
That's right.
So I traded for a spot in the break. And so that was at a Comic-Con event. And I ended up pulling a rare Gratitude Gorilla. And like it was this huge Chels chant that went on. So I took that. And like the whole chat went crazy too. So I took that whole chat and that chant and I clipped it into the video.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. It was great. It was great. that moment was just,
Who are you?
it was amazing. Yeah. And you're like, what? Does she even know VeeFriends? And so I took that. And then I also he did an interview. Gary did an interview, or like he had like I don't know, a call with Mo, and they were talking about prices of things. And then Mo said to him, he's like, I think you fucked up on the price. And then at one point, Gary said, well, your aggressive call out of you fucked up. So I took that and like played it back to him, like your aggressive call out of you fucked up. And I used that against him. So I took that clip of him doing that and I put it all together. And then at the very end of it, I burned a suffocate hate card.
Quickly, right in the corner.
Burned a suffocate hate card, and I dropped it. I dropped it down on the desk, and I said, "I'll see you on Friday." And
Which is a huge, huge sizzle reel for a break where, like, we've seen some shitty boxes.
terrible. Yeah,
We've seen, like, it could have been bad. Like, it's your first
it
stream.
could
Like,
have
you
been.
could have, like, spilt wine on the box. Like,
It could have been bad.
but it
I'd never
ended up.
broken S1 before. Like it was a big deal. Never even touched an S1 box. Yeah, I really set myself up for either failure or greatness
No.
in
So,
that moment.
so the break was on 11/10/23. I'm going to read two tweets from the day after.
Okay.
The first is by Soggy Waffles. It's been 24 hours since this magical moment. Still hasn't fully sunk in. This community is exactly what I needed in my life. And then you tweeted on the same day. If you didn't see last night, here's the moment with the chat. I think you posted the video because honestly, this wouldn't be anything without all of the VeeFriends community. We all won last night, and you can feel that. Congrats, VeeFam.
It literally still chokes me up.
You pulled a big card. It was an epic box, right? There's an auto, Kind Warrior, the first ever epic, the first ever spec Black Cat. But talk to us, like, both of those tweets aren't talking about the card at all. It's about the moment, the community coming together. What's from your perspective right here at this desk? We're sitting exactly where it happened a little over a year ago. Talk to us about that night and what it meant for you.
Yeah, it was wild. Gary was involved. He was in the chat the whole night. The VF team was in the chat too. So to have that support from them with their own product, I think is always a big deal and something I think we're all really grateful for. So that meant a lot. But just the sheer amount of people that showed up to support To the Moon and to support Soggy, who was new in the community, and it was like his first box. And it was kind of like, it was a big deal. When you buy a full box for yourself, it's a huge deal. And remember, only 1,000 of these are made, 800 released. So anytime like one's ripped, it's a big deal. And people recognized that. And that always means a lot. So they were showing up for someone that they just started to get to really know. And the support that I felt too was really, really great because it could have been so many things. It could have been like, you're ripping too slow. Like, we're talking internet people. So you don't know where it's going to go. But now we're talking VF family internet people. And that's a whole different feeling. Like, they're supportive, they're caring, and like, it's a great feeling to have that. And the energy and the vibes, like everything just felt so right and so good. And it was like banger card after banger card after banger card. Like, you mentioned the Auto Kind Warrior. Does anyone even remember the Auto Kind Warrior? And like, that's such a massive freaking card. He pulled like a Jacko. He pulled like
A zombie.
like a 6 zombie core, which is like incredible on the core, and just like so many good things. And then like playing off of Tom and Jay's energy too, like they were so supportive and it was fun. And Tom broke his chair that night officially, and like everyone was waiting for that moment where his chair was just like gonna go. And like seeing the chat fly, and like everyone was so excited for Soggy. People don't get bitter when a huge card is pulled. They like get like, there's so much love for the person who gets the card, who pulls the card, and like that's not something that you experience on an everyday basis. And then just knowing that we did something so historical and that it wasn't alone in a house. It wasn't, someone didn't pull that by themselves. Like the fact that it was being shared with everyone who cares so deeply about the characters and the IP and these cards made it super, super special. And the fact that I even got to be a part of that is something I don't even know how I finagled my way into that at all.
Mm.
I think Gary even said in the chat, if I remember correctly, best box of all time.
It
It was
was
special.
a real moment, which is alluded to all the time. And it became a thing. Like, you guys went to CGC, you got to connect IRL, and it's just one of those moments. It's always going to be referenced. So it's been over a year with To the Moon.
Yeah.
You've had on camera and maybe off camera, a nice dynamic with Tom, like a brother sister, like this argument kind of relationship. You fire Chels, the whole deal. You have your Friday night streams where you try to eat into their profits, the whole deal. What have you learned about the community during the year? What have you learned about cards, yourself? That's a lot, but
That is a lot.
I'll let you take one and run with it.
What have I learned about community? That they're extremely supportive, that they should be given a ton because they support a ton, which I think we really try to do, but they show up when you need them most. I think that, I really learn how to keep it valuable, which I think is important when you're building community, because it's easy to run any type of business. And the same thing this was happening with my crystal business was, at the end of the day, when we're on our show, we're selling things, and we're selling things we love and we're very passionate about. But people can buy things from anyone. And like with crystals and with the cards, they can go to someone else. And so I've learned, why should they do it with us? And it's just because I want them to feel cared when they're with us, and I want them to know that they're valued. So I've learned to just make sure I constantly help people feel that way. And that's why, I try to bring entertainment to Friday nights, and Tom and Jay do an incredible job at that as well. And I just try to keep up even close to what they're doing is almost impossible. Without that, no, it's just a business. So, and I don't want people to feel like they're a number or anything like that. So community to me is, I've learned just to make sure that people feel valued and loved and appreciated, and that they're spending their money with us, and it's valued, and we don't take that for granted, especially like these times of years, or hard times, or hard economy times. So I've learned just to like make sure we're really valuing people, and holding as many relationships as I can close. It's very difficult sometimes, but I'm just being there for people, not just to rip their cards, but I try to be there as much as I can for people. As far as what I've learned for cards, they hold a lot more meaning to people than just monetary, uh, especially with VeeFriends. A lot of these characters are changing people and how they think and how they feel. A lot of them are the inner voices that they didn't have. So maybe their parents didn't tell them certain things. I know Capable Caterpillar is huge for me, because capable is just a word that I don't think anyone heard a lot. So I've learned that cards, when I thought just would be cardboard, hold a lot more value for people. And I want to keep that value for them as well. What have I learned? Was the last one about myself?
Yeah.
I have learned to be realistic on my collecting side, and to know what to collect for us that's going to increase, like, not monetary value. Like, we're not just collecting things on our shelf for long-term money play, but like I've learned to really collect the things that matter, and that I don't need absolutely every single thing, and I don't have to feel like I need everything, because I feel sometimes like when you see people buying huge boxes or like pulling these big bowls, like we could feel like, like I want that too. But at the end of the day, it's just about like what actually is going to feel good, if that makes sense. Like, you can have all the things, and then when you look at it all, you're like, well, this one makes me feel a lot better than these. So cool. Then, find the people who need those, and you keep what feels good to you. So I feel like I've learned a lot about collecting for you instead of collecting to collect.
I love that.
Yeah, which I think is important. I think it's a realization that a lot of people who start collecting come to. And if you're in that, like, it's okay, because I feel like a lot of times people start off really hot and heavy and like they have a lot of stuff and they're kind of like, "Ah," that's okay. I think that's a normal thing. So I think that's just like a normal process, and that's okay. Like I
I feel like people do that either naturally or, through the cycles when people start unloading on whatnot shows or whatever, then they do those audits like, no, maybe I don't need this. And I really
right.
like these characters, or this is what I want to devote my time and goals to, collecting this or keeping this, striving for that. No, that's really interesting. I love that. You mentioned community a whole bunch of times in the last hour. So what does the word community mean to you?
Community means family. Community is, I don't think you can have anything successful without community. Community is a group of people that show up for each other, and not just because they're interested in that thing that is bringing them together, but it's because of each other. Community is something that holds so much more value than the thing that started the community, in my personal opinion. It's something that you can go to for advice. It's something that you can go to for work. It's something that you can go to for um, emotional support, physical support. It's something that's so much bigger than yourself. It helps you grow. There's so many components to community. I feel like it is absolutely necessary for people. I feel like you have to be in a community and you have to find the right community. It's something that you can't live without. Yeah, there's a lot of parts to community than
Mm,
just one thing for me.
it's very layered.
Super layered, yeah.
I'm gonna ask you another tough question. Some might call it unfair. So many people. There's never an unlimited amount of amazing people here, and a lot of times people gravitate towards posting negatively. And not so much in this community, but just in general. People are more likely to leave a bad review than a good review in a restaurant. But think about your interactions with people. Who, one, two, three people maybe, who's someone that you'd like to give roses to and shout out?
Oh gosh, that's really hard.
I know.
I wish you would have prepped me with this one. Oh goodness. So it's only got to be one. I've got like a group. I have a group.
However you want. This is your episode 69 of the VeeFam sessions.
All right. This is really hard because there's like I literally like a ton that I would
Just
do this to. I'll do the one. I'll do the one.
whatever you want to do.
I'll do the one. Uh Drew.
Talk to me about.
Drew. I would definitely give roses to Drew, and he's always showing up to like, I think, support people emotionally. He does things literally so selflessly, where yeah, like you don't see like his kindness coming, and then it hits you like a train.
Mm,
He says the sweetest things. He's constantly like retweeting and supporting people. He's like the nicest person in person. Like, and he'll talk to you, he'll like listen and talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. Like, he is so selfless. And I think about, if there was like, if everyone had like 5% of Drew in them, we probably would solve a ton of world issues.
I love Drove.
He's
It's a
just,
great answer.
he's like the sweetest, kindest. His heart is, man, I wish he was our neighbor. Let's be honest.
And he's like cute.
He's like the cutest.
He's freaking Drew's smile like floored me.
He's the
I
cutest.
fell on the ground.
He really is. He's
Yeah.
the cutest. And he's just like, he's so caring and sweet.
Shout out to you, Drew. Thank you. I
Roses
know
to
that.
Drew.
Roses
That's really
to Drew.
hard. That's really hard because there's like $6 million I could say, honestly.
Last question before we get to our last segment.
Okay.
I always like to ask, excuse me, my voice is just fucked today. Which VeeFriends character do you feel like you need to spend more time with?
Consistent cougar.
Well,
I know.
that was
I've listened to your episodes, so I didn't know if you were gonna ask me or not. Consistent cougar.
Why?
I think about it daily because I need to be more consistent. I feel like I should be dunking it in my coffee every single day. I have a really hard time staying consistent. Just like you said, like once I kind of do something and I get bored, I move on. But I need to get way more consistent in things because I know that's the only way to make anything grow, even if it's just like consistently personally developing or consistently picking up a good habit or whatever it is, consistency has always been my biggest challenge. And I struggle with it literally daily,
Good answer.
daily.
And I don't think I've heard of maybe a couple other people have answered consistent, but it's such a big the buzzword from VCon this year, 2024, um, from the speakers is just consistency.
Yeah.
Just
It's,
show up
yeah,
and just keep
yeah,
on doing the thing. Keep on doing the thing.
definitely.
Like look at anyone that's
Mhm.
made it big. It's just consistency. Gonna get to our last segment in a second. Just want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for marrying me, being the love of my life, and having my children as well.
Oh,
I appreciate you. And crazy, like I feel like there was a quick little hot minute where it was like, what the hell is happening? Like Chels came out of nowhere. She wouldn't talk to me about VeeFriends for 2 years, and now she's like, what's going on? And then it just became like status quo. Like she's just gonna be bigger fixture here than me, and that's fine. Like there's no like resentment or jealousy. It was just like, all right, this is how it is. Just like 5:55 spaces every Wednesday. Like that's just how it's gonna be. Like, and we're just gonna move on. But there was a small clip. I was like, what's happening? But I love the status quo. Here we go. The last segment is called Micro Macro Spitfire. I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you as fast as I can. You can answer really quick, yes or no in the macro, or take out your microscope and elaborate why you're answering that. This is Micro Macro Spitfire with at Chelsea Mess. Here we go. Favorite teacher you had growing up and one reason why?
Mr. Jones, probably all my math classes in high school. He actually cared that I didn't get it. Most teachers moved on. He actually cared and tried to actually help me. Yeah.
VeeFriends is a brand that hopefully many children love and will grow up with. But what was your favorite IP as a kid?
Disney, by far, absolutely obsessed.
Movie.
Titanic, also absolutely obsessed.
If we walked into 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old Chelsea's room, whose poster is on the wall?
12, 13, 14.
Tween years. Did you have a childhood idol poster?
No, I wasn't a big poster person. Was Pirates of the Caribbean out then? I had an Orlando Bloom poster. I just don't know if that
All
was
right,
that age.
we'll go with Orlando Bloom.
Absolutely.
Secret talent you have that most people don't know.
Secret talent? I'm so talentless. This is my problem with the talent show. I'm not a terrible singer. I sang at Carnegie Hall and I sang the national anthem at an LA Clippers game.
Singer, and you can do the finger thing, can't you?
Oh, my finger dancing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got pretty good sick finger dancing skills.
Mm.
They're all like double jointed.
That's a skill.
It's not a skill.
What's your favorite physical piece of VeeFriends memorabilia?
My favorite?
Yep. One item, physical.
Oh gosh, it's gonna have to be my lava S1 caterpillar.
If it was illegal to have more than one social media platform, which one would you keep legally?
Sorry to all of VeeFriends world.
Bushi hotel or hiking, camping in the woods?
A bougie hotel. Come on.
Wine, beer, or coffee?
Ooh, coffee.
Favorite concert you've ever been to?
My favorite one?
Favorite concert you've ever been to? Favorite concert you've ever been to?
Dave Matthews Toronto. I think we had a great time.
Paper Hands Pony or the Koala of 2025?
Koala, I guess.
Those are book games.
Yeah, I'm gonna say koala.
Gratitude Gorilla or Patient Panda?
Gorilla.
Would you rather have a 2-hour group dinner experience with Gary, you and 8 or 9 other people, or a 15-minute one-on-one?
2 hour. So much more value in other people too.
If you could ask Gary one question, he had to answer honestly, what would you ask him?
Oh my gosh, we've talked about this so many times.
We have?
Yeah. We've always said, like, if we have a second to ask him something, what would
yeah.
it be? Gosh, this one's really, really tough. I really struggle with this one. It's so funny. I've played this scenario over my head all the time. And the funny thing is I will never ask him anything. Literally every time I see him and I just like hug and he kisses me and that's about it. We have an unspoken bond. We don't speak to each other. One thing I would ask him, I would probably explain to him that I know what I would ask him. I'd explain to him how I do things all in and I get really excited and then I can accomplish something and like get it done and be successful. And then the second I hit that success level that I want, I'm like bored and then I need to find something else. So I think I would ask him, like, how do I fix that? What's the solution for me? What's the job title that is like this? Like, how do I keep
Hmm,
moving in life and be successful with that kind of skill? I think it's a skill. I just need to know how to harness it. I think I would ask him, what do I do?
I love that. One bonus question.
Mm.
That's usually the last question, but the fans want to know, do you and Tom really have a tension-filled relationship?
And sometimes we do, yes. Yes. And I think it's because Tom and I both have very strong personalities and we're both not afraid to say what we're thinking and we kind of do it without a filter. And that makes things sometimes a little difficult. But the good news is because we always say things, we usually resolve things pretty quickly because then it's out. We're not really ever holding stuff in. So that's kind of why it like works because like we have our stuff and then we squash our stuff. But yeah, it's real.
I love
It's
that.
real.
Thank you for coming on the VFam sessions. Because we're doing VFam sessions live, I'm gonna offer three quick Q&As. If you guys want to type in the